and share my screen with the agenda. And can everybody see the agenda?
Yes.
Yep.
And I think we should be good to go.
All right, well, good evening, good evening. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, this meeting of the Traffic Commission will be conducted via remote participation. We will post an audio recording, audio video recording, transcript, and other comprehensive record of these proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting on the City of Somerville website. Can I see if we have a quorum, please?
Yes, Chair Lathan,
Yes, here.
Lena Webb,
Here.
Lieutenant Raimel,
Here.
Assistant Chief Tierney,
Here.
and that's 4 yes, and we have a quorum.
Wonderful. All right, let's go over real quickly. Well, Happy New Year to my wonderful committee team. Meeting ground rules, let's listen to the other side, focus on issues, not personalities, avoid questioning motives, and let's be polite as always. All right, item number 1. Am I just missing something? We're good? Roll call vote, we're good? Okay.
Yes.
Item number 1, acceptance of the minutes from the December 12th, 2024 Traffic Commission meeting. Can I get a motion to accept or deny item number 1, please?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Can I get a second, Lieutenant Raimel?
Second for that.
Roll call vote to accept item number 1, please.
Yes, Chair Lathan,
Yes.
Lena Webb,
Yes.
Lieutenant Raimel,
Yes.
Assistant Chief Tierney,
Yes.
and that's 4 yes, and the motion carries.
Wonderful. Item number 2, request for accessible parking space at 23 Holton Street. Who is here to present this item?
Through the chair, Adrian Pomeroy, ADA coordinator with the city of Somerville. I received an application for an accessible parking space via the traffic and parking department at 23 Houghton Street. I've reviewed the space and all pertaining paperwork and recommend this site for approval.
Questions from the committee? I have one question. What's near this area? Is this all residential?
I believe so. When I looked at it, it appeared that way. And generally, these are to turn over residential permit spots, regular permitted spots to HP parking. Generally, Chair Lathan, if it's in more of a business area, that would still go through Traffic Commission, but that involves a few more steps, talking to abutters such as business owners, other folks, about turning those over. And sometimes we do get those requests from business owners because they have noticed that their patrons or consumers may be in need of one. But I believe, yeah, I just double checked that this is a residential street.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Hearing none, can I get a motion to accept or deny item number 2, please? Webb,
Make a motion to accept.
all right, second.
I will second that.
All right, roll call vote to accept item number 2, please.
Yes, Chair Lathan,
Yes.
Lena Webb,
Yes.
Lieutenant Raimel,
Yes.
Assistant Chief Tierney,
Yes.
and that's 4 yes, and the motion carries.
Wonderful. So I have a question about item number 3 and 4. So item number 3, request West Broadway reconstruction project, Broadway regulation changes, but item number 4, West Broadway reconstruction project, side street regulation changes. Okay, so 2 different items. Okay. So item number 3, West Broadway reconstruction project, Broadway regulations changes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, elemental P, Q, we got to Z, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. That is a first on this monumental January 9th. We got that full alphabet on an item. Amazing. Congratulations. So who is here to present this item?
Through the chair, this is Greg Hannafin, transportation planner for the mobility division. And if it's all right, I would actually like to present on items 3 and 4 together.
Okay, let me just look at item number 4, let me just announce it. West Broadway Reconstruction Project, Side Street Regulation Changes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, K, L, M, N, O. You almost were twofer. Any objections to bringing up these items at the same time, my committee? Hearing none? You have the floor.
Thank you. Yes, yeah, these are two different types of regulation requests, but they are centered around the same project, so it makes sense to talk about them in a shared context. And I have some slides that I can
Oh, yeah.
present.
Greg, do you want to share your screen or do you want me to hold them up?
I can try sharing.
Okay. I think you should be able to now.
Okay. Is the presentation showing? Oops.
Yes.
Sorry, just going on the other screen now. All right, I think I'll just do it in this mode if that's okay. So this is a follow-up to the informational presentation that I shared back at the November Traffic Commission about the West Broadway project. So in that meeting, I gave an overview of the entire project and the existing conditions of the street, goals, a review of our community engagement process and how we got to the point where we were in the design so far. So this is a follow-up to come and formally request the changes to the traffic regulations. So I won't go into as much detail about the project background. I have summarized what I think are the key points for this discussion, and then I will go through the individual A through Z items on the map, which I believe was sent to the commissioners in advance. So I'll go through all of that and discuss each of the individual changes. Just as a reminder, the limit of work for this project is the westernmost part of Broadway in Somerville, between Ellsworth Brook Parkway and just east of Clarendon Ave, just before Teal Square. To summarize this project, and particularly within the context of the traffic regulations, West Broadway was identified as a priority corridor for a complete streets reconstruction through the city's data-driven pavement and sidewalk management program. And through this program, we do complete streets upgrades every year within the city. For this project, the city has proposed and designed for a crosswalk, bus stop, and traffic calming improvements and 2 directions of protected bicycle lanes. The streetscape changes that are being made through these improvements necessitate the removal and reconfiguration of on-street parking on Broadway, roughly from about 62 spaces today to 32 spaces in the proposed condition. There was a parking study that the city conducted on West Broadway and adjacent side streets, and the results of that study suggested that parking demand will continue to be accommodated even with the removal of the on-street parking that is proposed with the project. Our goals for the traffic regulations were to prioritize parking and loading near businesses, increase handicap accessible parking on the street, and to optimize the regulations to balance a variety of neighborhood needs for the curbside space. And these goals align with the curbside prioritization framework within the city's parking and curb use study recommendations. Here is an overview of the project timeline so far. So we are currently in January 2025. We are approaching the end of the design phase of this project. The project launched back in September 2023, and since then we have gone through 3 community outreach and engagement cycles. And between each of those cycles, we have taken feedback from the community and updated our designs. We completed the most recent community outreach cycle in the fall, and are now finalizing our designs, and that's why we're coming before the commission to formally request the changes as part of the project. And soon the project will move into our pre-construction and bidding component of the project, and we'll open the construction window in the spring of 2025, and that will be open through the end of 2026. So I'll now move into discussing each of the individual changes. The way that I have formatted this is split it up into sections along the street. For each section, I've included the text and the map, but rather than reading through each of the individual items, I think it will be easier to discuss them while we're looking at the map. But just wanted to include each of the items in the slide deck for record. So right now we're looking at the section of the street between Alewife Brook Parkway and North Street. I'll talk about the north side of the street first. So I think items A, C, D, and F are all related to each other. So I'll begin there, and then we'll discuss the B and E on the south side of the street. So for and this stretch between Alewife Brook Parkway and North Street, there are currently 2 bus stops in the westbound direction. One is located by the Stop and Shop across from the Clarendon Hill Towers driveway, and one is located just past North Street. These 2 stops are much closer together than the MBTA would recommend. And so as part of this project, we've been working with the MBTA to consolidate those 2 bus stops into a single stop in this stretch of the street. And that the bus stop is being proposed to be located at where letter C is, which is actually a change from the most recent plan set that is shown here. So based on new MBTA data and public feedback that we had heard in our most recent round of engagement, we are proposing to locate the consolidated new floating bus stop at letter C. In order to do that, we need to change the regulations. There's a stretch of 2-hour except by permit parking here that we need to convert to bus stop parking. So it's a mix of 2-hour parking and then no parking as you approach the cemetery driveway. So we're requesting to change that to a new bus stop. At the bus stop, the existing bus stop that is by Stop and Shop, we are requesting to change the regulations from a bus stop to a mix of no parking, which is where this bump out is shown, and then we're also converting some of that bus stop to 2-hour parking except by permit. Currently, there are approximately 6 parking spaces that are 2-hour except by permit adjacent to Stop and Shop, and in this proposal we would be maintaining again, approximately 6 spaces. They would just be shifted slightly to the west. To the east, where we are proposing to remove the bus stop just past North Street in the westbound direction. We are requesting to convert the regulations there from a bus stop to metered parking. And we think that metered parking in this location will be an amenity to the businesses that are located just east of North Street. And that's something that we had heard from those businesses while we were out doing engagement on the street. The final change on the north side of the street at letter D, this is currently metered parking, and we would like to request to convert that regulation to no parking anytime to create a new bump out where we can create a permanent location for the Blue Bike Station, which is the Blue Bike Station right now for the Clarendon Hill neighborhood is on Broadway just next to the busway, but it's located in an on-street metered parking space. Having these stations off the street is optimal for maintenance reasons, safety reasons for people who are using the station. It also allows us to keep it out year long and not have to worry about removing it for the winter. So one of the goals of this project was to create an off-street location for that Blue Bike Station. And so essentially what's happening here is that the 2 meters that are currently where this bump out is shown are being shifted to the east. So preserving those 2 meters, but in a new location. On the south side of the street, because of the addition of protected bike lanes on West Broadway, we will be removing one side of parking. On this block, we prioritized retaining the parking on the north side of the street in order to maximize the number of parking that we preserved, as well as get the floating bus stop outside of the cemetery. On the south side of the street, there is an MBTA busway, so there are no bus stops here actually on Broadway itself. So there is no need for a floating bus stop on the south side of the street here. So for B and E, we are requesting to change the existing parking regulations, which is metered parking at B and I believe at E, also metered parking, requesting to change both of those to no parking anytime so that we can facilitate the protected bike lane on the south side of the street. I'm happy to continue going through, or if you would prefer to ask any questions or make any comments at each section, we can do that as well.
Yes, I just want to open up for questions at each section. So any questions on this section? All right, hearing none, go ahead.
So the next section of the street I'll be discussing is between North Street and Watson Street. Between North Street and Barton Street, there's currently parking on the north side of the street. It is a mix of meters and a single small loading zone. There's currently no parking on the south side of the street between North Street and Barton Street. On this block, we would like to request at location G to create a new handicap accessible parking space, converting 1 meter to an accessible parking space. And this is part of our goal of increasing the number of accessible parking spaces on this street, particularly near businesses, which this is a commercial block. So this is one location that we feel would benefit from a new accessible parking space, and there really is not one currently very close to this block. We are proposing to preserve 2 of the meters, so no change there. And then at letter H, we're requesting to extend the existing loading zone, which is approximately a 20 to 25 foot loading zone, to our standard 40-foot loading zone. And this request comes in response to feedback we heard from the businesses on this block, that they would like to have some additional space for commercial loading, as well as opportunities for short-term parking for their customers. So with our loading zone regulation, it is free 5-minute parking for anyone with a passenger plate and 20-minute parking for anyone with a commercial plate. So it can serve that dual purpose of short-term parking for picking up food or running into the convenience store that's here, as well as providing ample space, 40 feet, for any commercial loading activities. To the east of Barton Street, on the north side of the street, the existing regulations are 2-hour parking except by permit, and there is a MBTA bus stop just to the west of Belknap Street, where letter J is located, and you can see the T markings crossed out. We are proposing to shift that bus stop slightly to the other side of Belknap Street, and that allows us to create another floating bus stop, allow more space for people loading and unloading from the bus. It is preferred to have this stop before the crossing at Belknap Street and Garrison Street for visibility reasons for people crossing the street. When you have a floating bus stop just beyond a crossing, it is more difficult to see vehicles that are traveling in the other direction for people that are crossing the street. So for safety and for stop spacing reasons, we're proposing to relocate that stop to the other side of Belknap Street. What that does is open up some additional curbside space to the west of Belknap Street, which we are proposing to change to 2-hour parking except by permit to be consistent with the existing regulations of the parking there. Because of the bus stop relocation, we are also requesting to change some of the 2-hour parking east of Belknap Street to an MBTA bus stop regulation. So where letter K is right now is 2-hour except by permit. Some of that will still remain, and some of that will be, we're requesting to change to the bus stop. Letters I and L, similar to what we just discussed on the previous section of the street, in order to facilitate the creation of the new protected bike lane, we need to remove parking on one side of the street. And similarly, we have prioritized maintaining parking on the north side of the street here to keep it closer to businesses on this block and to maximize the amount of parking that we're able to preserve. Moving to the east, between Farragut Ave and Watson Street and Endicott, which is just off of the page, we have designed and are proposing to create a new raised block. And this raised block is to provide a more comfortable connection between 2 future neighborways in this neighborhood on Russell Road and on Endicott Ave. So this section block of the street will have a unique streetscape, which is designed to slow down vehicles and really prioritize that people who are walking and biking and maybe less comfortable in this type of environment will be crossing here more frequently or using the street here more frequently. At letters M, N, and O, the regulations today are all 2-hour parking except by permit, and we are requesting to change those regulations to no parking anytime, which will allow the creation and improvement of the crossings across Broadway. So there today is just one crossing between Russell Road and Farragut, and it's actually on this diagonal stretch of the street. And there are no curb ramps there because of the geometry. You can't actually fit curb ramps. So it's just striped and then goes up to a curb or to the edge of the street. So we are proposing to create 3 new, actually 4 new crossings here. There's one just east of the plane here, which I'll discuss in the next section. 4 new crosswalks here, which requires the removal of, I believe it's approximately 3 2-hour except by permit parking spaces. So that's M, N, and O for those new crossings. On this, the block between Russell Road and Watson Street, we have prioritized maintaining the on-street parking on the south side of the street. So we're chicaning the roadway here. And that decision was made after doing outreach with businesses that are on the south side of the street here that requested to preserve parking near those businesses. So P is the removal of the parking on the opposite side of the street, again, to facilitate the protected bike lane. And the existing regulation there is also 2-hour except by permit. I will stop there for any questions on this section.
All right. Hearing none, let's go.
Okay. And then our final section of Broadway. Again, this is that raised block. So we're now can see the end of it at the Endicott side. And this is the new crossing that's proposed at Endicott Ave. I'll do letter R first. So there is an existing bus stop at just west of Weston Ave in the eastbound direction. The bus stop that is there today is very short and is not an accessible bus stop. So the bus can't actually get up to the curb when there are vehicles parked in what is currently metered parking here. So we are proposing to create a floating bus stop there and extend the bus stop slightly in order to make that an actually accessible parking space, or sorry, accessible bus stop. In order to do that, we are requesting to convert one metered space into a longer bus stop in order to create the floating bus stop. On the south side of Broadway between Endicott Ave and Weston Ave, there are currently 3 metered parking spaces. So in this new condition, there would be 2 metered spaces and then the improved bus stop. On the opposite side of the street, we are requesting to convert 2-hour parking except by permit to no parking anytime to again allow the facilitation of the protected bike lane. We prioritized maintaining parking on the south side of the street here to be adjacent to the block of businesses between Endicott Ave and Weston Ave. east of Weston Ave and Dixon Street. I'll discuss the north side of the street first and then go to the south side of the street. Similar to what I just discussed at the bus stop west of Weston Ave, there's an existing bus stop in the westbound direction to the east of Dixon Street. We're proposing to make improvements at that bus stop and create a floating bus stop. Unlike the Weston Ave bus stop, the bus stop at Dixon Street today is actually a very long bus stop, so it takes up almost the entire length of the curb between Dixon Street and Hill Street. So by creating a floating bus stop, we are actually able to add new curbside space. We're able to shorten the bus stop and create some additional curb space for other uses. We are proposing with that additional space between Hill Street and the bus stop to create 3 new metered parking spaces. The existing regulation is the MBTA bus stop, and then there is a small section of the street that is 2-hour parking except by permit. We are requesting to take that additional bus stop space and the 2-hour parking except by permit and convert that to metered parking. And the decision to propose metered parking was made following conversations with the businesses that felt that having the meters and encouraging turnaround and shorter term parking would be better for their needs. And there are no residences fronting Broadway on this block. So we are, proposing the metered parking. To the east of Hill Street, we prioritize preserving parking on the north side of the street to abut the block of businesses on this block. At letter T, we are proposing a new handicap accessible parking space. Similar goal with the space near North Street of creating new accessible parking near businesses. The existing regulation here today is metered parking and a 40-foot loading zone. So with the remaining curbside parking space, we are proposing to keep 2 meters and keep the 40-foot loading zone. So that is letter U is the loading zone. The approximate location of the loading zone today is about where letter V is. With the new protected bicycle lanes and the location where the road needs to chicane approaching Teal Square, we do need to shift that loading zone to the west. So at letter U, we're proposing to convert 2 metered spaces to the loading zone, and at letter V, we are proposing to convert the what is today the loading zone to no parking at any time. Letter W is currently a bus stop similar to the stretch of street between Alewife Brook Parkway and North Street. We have 2 bus stops that are very close together today at Curtis Street and Dixon Street. And working with the MBTA, we're proposing to consolidate those into a single stop at Dixon Street. And the decision to locate the stop at Dixon Street is primarily one of safety. Having a bus stop this close to Teal Square would mean that the bus would have to share the curbside space with the bike lane. We wouldn't be able to separate those 2 uses because we need to maintain 2 travel lanes in the eastbound direction through Teal Square. The bus would also need to partially block the travel lane in the westbound direction, which means that while the bus was stopped there, there would likely be vehicles that were queuing into the intersection. So for those safety reasons, we are proposing to consolidate that stop further from Teal Square. And that is at letter W. X, Y, and Z are similarly requests to convert parking to no parking in order to facilitate the protected bike lane. At letters X and Z today, there is metered parking. At letter Y, there is currently a handicap accessible parking space that we worked with the parking department to conduct observations of and understand the utilization of that space. What we found is that we didn't have a record of the request for that space, and that it didn't appear to be utilized frequently and by the same vehicles. So we are opting to relocate that space to letter T to be closer to the businesses and feel like that will serve. It's the location better serves the handicap accessible parking. Okay. Any questions or comments on this section?
I have a question, Greg. Between Endicott and Weston, that block of stores, is there any loading zone plans for there?
So we have been in discussion with these businesses about the possibility of converting this metered parking to a loading zone. We're still doing some evaluation, in fact, finding there, but through this process, that was something that came up, that there may be a need for a loading zone here. So at this stage of the project, we aren't proposing to change, other than the handicap accessible parking, we aren't proposing to change regulations in on-street parking spaces that are staying where they are. But that's something that we're going to continue to follow up with, whether it's more appropriate to have metered parking or a loading zone on that block. And if through the evaluation we determine that this is better served as a loading zone, then we would come back to a future meeting and request a change to just that one space.
Thank you.
Great. Any questions?
Okay, so that that concludes the review of Broadway itself. So that's item 3. So for item 4 are a number of requests for changes on side streets, and the context here, through our community engagement with the businesses and sharing our proposal for the changes on Broadway with the businesses, we heard several concerns about the removal of on-street parking and concerns about customers not having enough spaces to park to use the businesses on the street. In order to create some additional flexibility for non-residents to find parking spaces in the West Broadway area, we came up with a proposal to convert some of the parking on some of the side streets off of West Broadway from resident permit only parking to 2-hour parking except by permit. the locations of those proposed changes are circled with the red circles and shown in the green line. So just to set the stage for this slide, the top image is the existing parking regulations, which are shown up top here. So green is 2 hour except by permit, blue is resident permit only, orange is metered parking, brown loading zone, and pink handicap accessible parking. The bottom map is our proposed changes, and the areas circled in red are where we're proposing to essentially change the blue permit resident permit only to green 2 hour parking except by permit. And the idea here is that and we prioritize those changes on side streets that are adjacent to blocks of Broadway where more significant numbers of parking were being removed. So that's why it's restricted to just these 7 locations and not the entire street. And the idea here is that during the middle of the day, when the parking utilization is lower on the side streets by residents, there would be some additional flexibility for non-residents and customers to use that space for up to 2 hours. But for those residents who are parked there throughout the day, they can leave their vehicle with no time limit if they have a resident permit. We have brought this proposal to the community and to the businesses as part of our latest round of outreach, and generally have heard very positive feedback as part of that outreach, especially from the businesses. We also we had a community event at Weston Manor on Weston Ave recently, and heard from them that they really like this change because it gave more flexibility for home health aides and visiting nurses to use those spaces to park, whereas sometimes they have more difficulty finding parking on Broadway itself, where there is more limited non-metered opportunities for parking. So we really feel like this change will give that additional flexibility to businesses and some of the other needs for the neighborhood without compromising the resident parking need. So that concludes my presentation. I am happy to take any questions or comments. I do also have the slide deck from the previous presentation available. So if there were other questions about the project, I'm happy to pull that up again.
Questions? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Greg, for this presentation. May I get a motion to accept or deny items 3 and items 4, items 3, A to Z, and items 4, A to O?
I will make a motion to approve.
Right, I get a second. Tierney? Rima?
Yep, I was on mute. Sorry. I'll second that.
Great. Can I get a roll call vote to approve items number 3, A to Z, and items number 4, A to O?
Yes. Chair Lathan,
Yes.
Lena Webb,
Yes.
Lieutenant Rymel,
Yes.
Assistant Chief Tierney,
Yes.
And that's 4 yes, and the motion carries.
Wonderful. That looks like that is it for our agenda items. Can I get a motion to adjourn this wonderful meeting?
I'll make a motion. I just don't want it to end.
Yeah, Greg, do you want to run that presentation through maybe from the beginning again?
I'm gonna lose my voice.
I'll second that motion.
Wonderful. Can I roll call vote to adjourn the meeting?
Yes, Chair Lathan,
Yes.
Lena Webb,
Yeah, yes.
Lieutenant Rymel,
Yes.
Assistant Chief Tierney,
Yes.
and that's 4 yes, and the motion carries.
All right, cool beans. Groovy, groovy. Have a great evening. See you guys next month.